Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we'll look at how can we fasten the data preparation and engineering work 10 times faster as part of building a data analytics dashboard. So as you may know, as part of building the data analytics dashboard for any use case, the hardest bit is the data preparation and the data engineering work. So what do I mean by data preparation and data engineering? So probably you can see this the raw data. So there has to be cleansing to the raw data. You have to clean the raw data. You will have to transform it. You have to build a model. Sometime, so this has to be multiple raw data sets. It has to be imported too. So in today's video, we'll look at how we can do all these different steps much faster than how it is done in Excel. So if we have to do it in Excel, okay, we have to do it very manually, or we have to write a VBA script, which is good for small data. VBA script is good for small data. But if you're dealing with a bigger data set, probably using something like a SQL server or any database would be much faster. So before we waste any more time, okay, so we will look into the use case of what we're going to do today. So as you remember, okay, in my previous videos, okay, where I showed you how to build a dashboard using Excel and also how to build a dashboard using Power BI with the raw data set as Excel. We went through that. We remember the data engineering work or cleansing. We didn't do the cleansing, but even if you're going to do it, it has to be done in Excel. Or importing the data to Power BI. So we have to create a relationship to build the model. But today we will follow a different approach by doing all this data preparation and engineering task in SQL and see how faster it is. So before I explain the details of how every script is written, what are the logics inside that, I would like to show a quick demo of how fast we can do it. So let me start with the process we have to follow. There's one more thing which I have to say, the first time when you're doing this for a project, okay, you have to create database too. So let's do the first step. What is create database? So this is SQL Server. So I'm logged in already, or probably I'll just close it and open it for you. I close this. So the way you open is you can download the SQL Server Express for free from Microsoft website. So once you download and install it, okay, you should see this in your system. So you just simply open that. Once you set up, you can use a Windows authentication to log into it, or you can have a user ID and password. So how it looks is this, I'm opening it at the moment. So it comes like this. Okay, so I have configured everything already. So I just connect to my server, which is Umar Ghani. So this is the main part of SQL Server. SSMS is called SQL Server Management Studio. You can see database here. So this is the main part. So right now I have some other databases here. Okay, but let's create a new database. I'm just want to know the name of the database. So I'll use this Liquid LLC as the name. Yeah. So I'm just using this name. So the database size is 8 MB. Probably I'm just doing a full recovery model. So if something goes wrong, I can recover it in full, or you can keep it as simple so that it doesn't log everything. So these are the two settings you need to do. So then you go here, you give the database name and just create it. So it should have created a database here. That's the first step, as I showed you here. The second step is data import. You remember we were working with two files. One is the purchase price raw data file and a classification file. These two are the files we need for the dashboard. So we go here. This is the first step. Okay, we import, and this is Excel. First file is in Excel. So I just select Excel. I select that file, which is classification. I click next. So you have to give first row as column because it's a header. Next. So I'm going to write it back to SQL Server native client 11, so that it writes it back to this database. Windows authentication, I give next. So I'm just going to copy data from one or more tables or views from the Excel. So this is the actual name of the sheet. I'm just going to copy into this destination. So I don't want the dollar, so I remove it. It's just the name what you're giving. You can give any name. So once you click next, I just run immediately. So it loads the data into here. Okay. So now if you refresh this, if you go to tables, you can see that particular table has been loaded. So likewise, let's load the other data too. So go here, import data. Next. So this is a CSV file. So you have to select flat file, which is the file type. I browse I look for CSV. This is the one. And there is a text qualifier, which is double quotes. Give that. And you can see all the column names here. So advanced, select everything. So this is just to give the output column, with sometimes if it is a text column, okay, it might be more. So I just 500 characters. Then I preview it. And then I go next. I select the SQL native client 11 again. I select next, 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 and finish. So I've loaded these two data. Yeah. So now the data import is complete. Yeah. So every time we need to do any kind of data engineering work, you have to import the data first. That's what you've done. Now the data appending. So this is the first time we're doing this. We're not going to append any data. So this comes into picture when already an analysis is built. New data is coming in. You have to append that to the older data and do the analysis. That's where this step comes in. But we look at that scenario after we complete the whole one iteration with the existing data, which is the first time. So the next part is data cleansing. So what I've done is, in SQL, it's handy. I have written a script. So far, we didn't look at data cleansing at all. So, but what I've done is look into the data and looked at. I just want to work only with clean data, and unclean data, I'll store it as another table, which I will go and look into it later on and correct it. So right now, if you see the script, if I run simply, let's say, assume that you know this. When I run it, so look at how long it takes. So literally, it doesn't even take 3 seconds to run it. So now the data is cleansed. If you refresh the table, you can clearly see there are two tables. One is the clean data. One is the data that has to be cleansed, which is unclean data, which we can look into it later on. So, and you've got the purchase price raw, which is the original source, and classification raw, which is the an original source of classification table of which we loaded. So if you see the data cleansing is done, now the transformation is the next step. So I've written that script also. So it's a very simple script. You're joining to get the classification description. So you execute that. So pretty much it is done. So you see the number of rows is lesser here because, after cleansing the data, the unclean data has been removed. So we are working only with the clean data right now. So this is the clean data. So the transformation is done. So now what we have to do after transformation, so that is the transformation is done. Now simply you have to connect to Power BI. So if you refresh it again, you'll see a table called Power BI here. So that's where I put the final transformed data model, Power BI. So look at this. So you go here, how you connected to see Excel to get the data. Likewise, you go to this database and select SQL Server and put in the server name. So you can get the server name from here. This database is Umar Ganesh, the server name. So I go put it here. Simply I click, so it's connected. So because I've already authenticated with my Windows. So now you can see the Liquid LLC. So now all you have to do is bring this Power BI file, import it. So you can transform it also, before importing, or you can load it and transform it, whichever way you want you can do it. I think for Excel we transform first, but I'm just loading everything. Right now everything is varchar, I know that. So I just load it. So you can see this data here, which is same as this one, but the slight difference is we don't need two tables now. I've already done the transformation, that is the joining, and I've got the description of classification already here. Classification description is here. So what do I mean is, if I do a select star from here, so the description of classification already here. I've already got this here. But remember the last time when we did it with Excel, we did the joins here using relationship like this. So right now we don't have to do it because the best way to do things is bring one final table after doing all the data transformation. Use that table to build the visualization. Then it will be much easier for you to do it. So right now, after this, the process of building visualization is same as how you used to do back in, how we did in Excel, or how we did in adding the Excel to Power BI and building the visualization. So if you want to, you can refer back to the video I have put on the link. How did I build this dashboard from the data? So you can refer back on how I built this and how did I create the interactions, how did I create the sync slicers, then how did I create the many other things. Probably this one, yeah. So the drill, I think it's called drill through, yeah. So you can look into that video to get the details of that. But right now we have got this. After this, you can pretty much build the visualization. So if you notice, to get the data engineering work done. Literally, it took us 5 to 10 minutes. It's very fast. So, imagine if you're dealing with a big data set, this is the right way to do it. Okay, you have to do it this way. But now look at the beauty. So right now we looked into the transformation for the first time. Let's say this is something, okay, you have to do it on month. Okay, your head of purchase is asking for this dashboard month on month, refreshed on new data. Let's assume that we have got a new data, on classification, this thing again. Now you don't have to start from scratch. So you can do this quite fast with SQL. But I'll explain the scenario first if you're doing it with Excel. If you have to do it with Excel, you have to open this, you have to open the older file, okay, you have to combine those together, copy paste, and bring one data set. And then you have to load it here and clean it and all that. But the beauty of SQL Server is you simply load those new tables here. So import that new tables. What I'll do is I'll say import data. I'll say next. First one is Excel. So this is the new data. Yeah. So I just load the new classification updates. Select a SQL Server native. So I'm going to give it as S. So then I next run it. So likewise, let me import the other new data set here, which is CSV. Yeah. Go to browse, look for CSV file in the new data, and this is here. Yeah. So now I know the test qualifier is double quotes. So what do I mean by test qualifier is if I don't give anything here, let's say it's none. If you go here, so you'll see this double quotes on the header names. So to avoid that, it has a text qualifier, you have to give that, okay, double quotes. So now if you go back there, okay, so I think I have to do it again. Import data, next, that file source. Select that file. I give the text qualifier as double quotes here. Now if you go to columns, you won't find that here. So it's removed. So they go to advanced, the same thing. Select everything, give 500. Review, next. You have to load it into SQL Server native client 11. Next. And loaded this. So this is the new data. So if I refresh the table, so you can see this new data is populated here. Raw data and classification. New data set. So now instead of doing from scratch thing, what you can do is you can write an append script. That's what I have done. So I've written the script. Now if I run this, all it does, it automatically combines all the data, the old data, new data together and builds a new raw file for me, both in purchase price and in classification. So I've not brought the table, okay, so that's why it is there. This is the data we imported. But if you want, whenever you imported a new data, delete it also. Drop is to drop the database. So drop the table so that it is deleted. Yeah. So right now it is refreshed. Okay, so now the same process I can apply. So new data has been appended. Next is the cleansing. So I go here and run the script. Simply select this and run it. So you can see. So what I've done is, whenever you do cleansing, so it would split the data into clean and unclean. To be cleansed is unclean. So now if we have to make sure whatever the input you gave is equal to clean plus unclean. So what I've done is clean plus unclean minus input, that is the raw data, should be 0. That's what I've done. Just to make sure the data is properly cleansed, the data is split properly. There's no errors. So that's what I have done here. So now if you see clean data is here. So this is all clean. There's no problem with this data. So if you see unclean data is here. Blanks are there. If there is any special character, I said, okay, it is unclean. But we look into the script. How did I say that is an unclean data? Yeah. So that's how you clean the data. Right now we cleansed it again, with the new data. Now we have to do the transformation. You click this and execute. It's all done. So now if you want to, you don't have to re-import the data. All you have to do is go refresh the data. So this is connected directly to the database and it refreshes. So you can see how fast the process is. Imagine if you have to keep doing more and more data. Once you write the query, there's a one-time effort to write the query. Then the data engineering work pretty much is 2 or 3 clicks. In some cases, we can even automate this. That is a little more advanced. Okay? But this itself is saving a lot of time, because to create the dashboard, the most amount of time it takes is the data engineering, which is working with the data to make sure the right data is fed into the visualization what we want to build. And again, once you have built the visualization with the data that has been imported, any new data comes, all you have to do is refresh this data set, which is already connected to the database. All these visuals would be like refreshed. So once the data set is refreshed and you give refresh all, so get the latest data by refreshing all visuals in the report. So this would automatically get the new data in. So if you see, using the SQL Server makes the whole process more reliable, more productive, more reusable. And also pretty much to me, it is 10 times faster than if you have to do it in Excel. And it can deal any big data set. Even a bank who is doing millions of transactions on a daily basis, this database can accommodate. That's the power of SQL Server. So the SQL Server Express is given as free, which is 5 GB. You can use up to 5 GB for you to practice. Otherwise, you have to get an enterprise license based on the plan, whatever they have within Microsoft. Okay, so I think so now you understood the process of the data engineering using SQL Server. But I think so I showed you the script, but probably you need to understand what is happening there, right? So I'll start with data cleansing. So the cleansing script, So the cleansing, what I have done is, so this line, okay, if you see, so I'm just saying, okay, if this particular object, that is, if this table is there, so if it is null, means, okay, if it is not there, then I'm basically creating a new table. This is for some naming convention, so to make sure the data, the right tables are there. But the actual cleansing happens from here. So I've clearly given cleansing and reconciliation script. So what I'm doing here is, first I'm checking if any of the fields within this particular data set that I have imported has blanks. So basically I'm removing the blank. So doesn't have blank. So I'm just saying select all the data from this particular table. Star means all the data set, all the fields where all the field names not equal to blank. So you get only the not equal to blank. Then I am from this data set, once I see that all the data field doesn't have blank, I'll have the data set that doesn't have blank. Let's say if one line item has a blank, that will be automatically removed here. So say if it is 10,000 line item, the remaining will be 9999. That from the 9999, you will look at if any of the data fields has null, not null. So you take only the data field that doesn't have any null. If it has null, it won't take it. So likewise, okay, I'm removing the special character also. From the output of not null and not blank, I'm removing all the special character. Whenever the data start, the value of the particular data point field, okay, starts with the special character and removing. That's what it means. So this percentage, if you put on the left, any of the field has this special character, it will remove that. So if I put at the end, if any of the field has a special character at the end, it will remove. So you have to modify this cleansing script according to your strategy, how you want to clean it. But this is an example. So I removed blank, I removed null, I removed any leading and lagging special characters. So any data point that has that, I have removed. So then that goes into a clean data set. So I'm just selecting that data and putting it into a clean data set. Then after that, what I'm doing is I need the unclean data set too, right? Because I want to look into it and just correct it later on. So what I'm doing is I'm just using the opposite logic. I'm just selecting all the data and I'm adding another field called issue. So which means I'm saying the blank is the issue. So if any of the field has blank, that would go into this particular temporary table. So I'm selecting all the data from raw data, and just wherever any field has blank, I'm just keeping that, and I'm just unioning that. Okay, that is appending that to all the list of fields where there is null. So I'm just calling that as issue. Likewise, I'm adding wherever there is a leading or lagging special characters. So that would go finally into, if you see, I'm just putting that into to be cleansed. this is unclean data. Sometime later, I have to look into it and to be cleansed. So if we just look at the unclean data, so you'll know the reason. Yeah. So if I select this, you can see issue is blank. So there's a blank here. That's why it's calling the issue as blank. Yeah. So that's how you find what's the issue. And the next step is like you have to reconcile, right? Unclean plus clean should be equal to the raw data. So I'm just taking the count of clean, then I'm getting the count of the raw and multiplying it by 1. So once I add all of that, it should be 0. That's the check I'm doing here. So when I run the whole query, the count is becoming 0, which means unclean plus clean is equal to raw data. So that's the check I'm doing. So this is how I've written the script. And then the next step is probably after cleansing is transformation. So transformation is very simple. What we are doing is we are just getting the classification description added to this base table. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting the data from here, which is the clean data from purchase price, and joining with the classification raw. So I didn't do cleansing on this raw. So if you want, you can add that script also, and you can have a classification clean too. So I'm just doing a left join. So you should have some idea about what is join. So as it is, left join means for all the keys that are there in the left table, it will match it for the right table. Wherever it is there, it brings the data. If it is not there, it will become null. The key here is the classification. So you're joining it based on the classification number that's there in classification. So once you run this, you would get the final table with the classification description, which is going into the final table called Power BI. So if you see here, open it, you can see a classification description that has been added. That's the output of this query. That is transformation. So after transformation is basically connecting to Power BI. I showed you how you can connect it. So what is pending now is data appending. Let me quickly show you that also. So how do you append your data? So what I'm doing is, so the raw data is there, the existing raw data, which is already used for analysis. So new data, that is classification, that I've imported, that is the new data. So I'm just adding both, that is unioning all both. Then I'm putting into another table called appended. So that is the appended data. But we cannot just use it like that. Why? Because sometimes the new data that is coming in might have the older data that is already there. So generally in reality it happens. So you have to make sure there are no duplicates in the final table. So I'm just removing the duplicates here. What I'm doing is I'm just doing the distinct of all the fields from the new appended data that I'm putting into a new, the classification raw table, which is the final table which we'll use for the analysis, which is transformation, cleansing and transformation. So likewise, I've done the same thing for purchase price. I've appended the old data, which is the raw data, with the new data that has come in. Then I've taken a distinct to make sure there are no duplicates, and I'm putting into a purchase price raw again, so that is used for the analysis. That's what I've done in appending. So I hope for the first time it won't be clear. Probably if you have worked on SQL already, you might understand. You need to know these different keywords and the queries and the features of SQL for you to understand the script. But if you guys need me to talk about the basics of SQL, what are the features you need to know, I can even make another video on that. But I assume that you guys would have already know a little bit of SQL so that it's easier for you to follow through. It's more like a process we follow to build the dashboard in a much productive way, so much faster way. So this is how it's generally built on pretty much all organization. So they will go one step forward. Okay, so automating all of this, even the import, what we imported manually. So you can write a script on Python to load 1,000 tables parallelly. It will just go into the database. So once the data is loaded, automatically it will trigger all these cleansing, transformation, appending, and everything. All the scripts are done. Everything happens automatically. Even the refresh can be scheduled on Power BI. Then automatically it refreshes. So there will be a one-time build effort. But after that, it is possible to automate everything. So the end-to-end is automated, which is more reliable, time-saving for anyone who's doing it. So this more productive way of doing data analytics. Yeah. So I hope this video would have given you a lot of insights on how SQL Server works in real world projects, and also you would have got an understanding of the steps I've followed to do this. There is much more advanced SQL also there, where you optimize it using advanced queries, and also you can program this whole thing into a store procedure where that can be run every time. So I've just kept it as queries. If it is a store procedure, you can trigger it using a Python script and directly call that store procedure. So which would be even more productive. It's the next level to this basically. Yeah. So what I've done is put all these scripts in the same URL. In the URL, what I'll provide in the YouTube, in the description of this video. So if you want to try it out on your own, you can go ahead and build this database. You need to have this database because everything is referred to this database, and the files also would be there. You can import that. You can just follow along this video and just try it on your own. If you have any questions, probably you can ask me. So I did this pretty fast. So on the flow, I just did this. If there are any errors, also feel free to let me know. I'll just try and correct it. What else? So I think nothing else from me in this video. I think so I have told everything what I wanted to. I hope this would give you some good insights on how we can use SQL Server in a data analytics project, or data analytics and visualization project, or a dashboarding project, however you want to call it. So this is how you use it, and feel free to ask me any question. And if you have any comments, any thoughts, you want me to cover anything else, feel free to post it in the comment. I will try and comment, and I'll try and make a video on that. Thanks a lot for listening, everyone. Okay, so you guys have a great day, and I will see you with another video very soon. Thanks a lot for listening.